So in this video, I'll show you how to find the domain of a function and how to write it in interval notation. Remember, when you have a function, you have input that goes in, you have some kind of a function rule, we'll call it f, and then you have your output that comes out. Okay? This input is also known as the domain of the function. And it's the set of all values you can put into the function that will result in an output value. The problem is when you have a rational function that has a division, whenever the denominator is 0, those values don't produce a specific output value. They produce undefined. So when we do domain for rational functions, we have to exclude values that result in a 0 denominator. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to find those values. So I'm going to find the values where this denominator is equal to 0. Because it's a square, I'm going to need to factor to do that. This is your a squared minus b squared binomial pattern, a plus b, a minus b. So for x squared, that's x times x, and 1 is 1 times 1. So one of these with a plus and one of each with a minus. I set each factor equal to 0. Solve those factors, and I get -1 and 1. That means that I can put anything into this function named f except -1 and 1, because if I put them into the function, they'll cause an output that's not a real number. And remember, the domain has to be a set of numbers that produces a set of real numbers. So since these produce undefined result, those are not considered part of the domain. Now, if I draw this on a number line for x, what I'm saying is that I need to skip over -1 and I need to skip over 1. So if I'm looking at all my values, that means everything to the left of -1 works. Everything between -1 and 1 will work. Everything on the right of 1 will work, all the way to positive infinity, but the value at -1 and 1 will not work. So this will help me write my interval notation. I start at -infinity, and I proceed until I get to -1 and then have to skip over -1, and the parentheses means to skip over it. Then I have another set, so I'm going to union all this together. All the values between -1 and 1, again, not including is the parentheses. Then I have another set from 1 to positive infinity. So this interval notation means everything to the left of -1, everything between -1 and 1, and everything from 1 to positive infinity is in the domain of this function. Any value in this set, when entered into this function as an input value, will produce some numerical output. Only the values -1 and 1 would produce undefined, and therefore they are not part of the domain of the function. So this is the domain of this function in interval notation.